Hey guys, it's luckily ASMR, and some of you may be asking why I am seated completely to the side on this video, why this area is, well, blank. But in this case, it's because I will be showing you plenty of pictures or videos or GIFs of different things, specifically this time from Spain, and we will be making it's not really a guide, this is a new series that I devised in which I'll be talking about different things in specific countries. I hope to go through every country in the world if possible, and I'll be talking about unique things about these countries, something that might make you remember these countries, or that might make you want to visit these countries. I'll also be speaking a bit about the languages, which is part of the part that you guys, as lovers of my language videos, should also enjoy. And there will be, of course, in each of these a bit of that language. Like, I'll be speaking a bit of Spanish in this video. But in any case, this is mostly for fun type of video, in the sense that I'm no expert in Spain. I just did a bit of research, quite a bit of research on Spain, to bring you what is, in my opinion, the most interesting things about Spain. I left out all the boring stuff, all of the longitudinal position, the things that people don't really care about in general, and I just left in the things that I thought would be the most appealing and most interesting when it comes to something like Spain in this case. But yeah, I'm no expert, but I will still try and do my best and give you guys a fair sort of review of Spain, and maybe show you guys some interesting things that you never knew about Spain, and possibly for any of you that don't know where Spain is or something like that, show you where Spain is, what parts of Spain exist, and so on and so on. So I'll just start off right now. I've taken this intro for way too long anyway. But yeah, so Spain, also known as the Kingdom of Spain. I won't be talking about the fact that it is a kingdom and also has a parliament. It's not important. Most people don't care about politics, so we'll just skip that part and start off with, well, the flag. And all of you should know the flag because it's basically world renowned in a sense, and it's quite unique. Red, yellow, red, with a coat of arms on it, which I've always thought looked quite cool. Let's start off with the geography. So, as many of you know, Spain is a European country, specifically a southwest, or should I say southwestern European country. It is bordered mostly by sea, but also by a couple of countries, and it also has different territories like islands all around it. Specifically, Spain borders France, a small little country that many of you might not know exists, which is Andorra. It's between France and Spain. Then there is also Portugal, which is on the same peninsula as Spain. Atlantic Sea, the North Atlantic Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the entirety of it, and a lot of Spain is on the Mediterranean. So Spain has both little islands that are part of Spain, but are not part of the mainland, and they also have different territories in Africa. Specifically, these territories are Ceuta, Melilla, Penon de Vélez de la Gomera, and they also have an exclave town in France called Livia. What this essentially means is that Spain, despite being a European country, actually is partially in Africa, and is also has a random town in the middle of France. I mean, it's not really in the middle of France, it's really close to the border, but it's still completely surrounded by France, which is why it's an exclave, which is a name for something that is completely surrounded by another territory that is not its own. But yeah, besides that, as I said, Spain has many islands. A lot of them are quite famous. Some of the two most famous archipelagos are the Canary Islands and the Balearic Islands. Of the Canary Islands, most people know it's the Tenerifes and La Palma, while of the Balearic Islands there's Mallorca and Ibiza as one of the most popular destinations in the world. But yeah, continuing on, a thing that I forgot is that the last bordering nation, or is it country, to Spain is Morocco in Africa, because the part of Spain that it is in Africa is next to Morocco. And another thing that is often not misrepresented but misinterpreted, Spain is actually a neighbor of Great Britain through Gibraltar, whatever. Gibraltar is the part, the very edge, so the European part that separates it from Africa. But Britain is the owner of this part, specifically because of a multitude of reasons that I will not be talking about this time around. But yeah, it's quite fascinating that there are so many actually countries it borders when it looks like it's only basically bordered by two, which is France and Portugal. But yeah, moving on to a more interesting part, which is the largest cities. Of course, many of you might know that the largest city in Spain is not Barcelona, it is Madrid, the capital city. But the largest cities are Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, and Seville. Those are the four that I'll be talking about this time around, because they were, in my opinion, both the most unique in a lot of ways, and I didn't want to oversaturate this video with a lot of talk about different things. I thought that talking about those cities would be pretty much enough to give you sort of a good insight into how the rest of the rest of Spain looks. But in any case, we have Madrid, the largest city and the capital. The meaning of Madrid's name is actually the place of abundant water, which I'll be showing a picture here, which should represent some of the unique architecture in Madrid, which flows around the abundant water that you have in Madrid. Madrid is also one of the largest cities, one of the three largest cities in Europe, only next to London and Berlin. It is also one of the greenest capitals in the world, which is something that I respect highly, as it invested a lot into infrastructure, which is why a lot of the architecture flows really well with the greenery that is omnipresent in the city itself. So it is definitely a very architecturally and green, positive type of city, which is also one of the reasons why I recommend visiting it. Madrid is also a city that boasts one of the only monument to a devil, which is Lucifer, in the world, and the monument is situated, it's called the Fountain of the Fallen Angel, and it's situated in Retiro Park, depicting Lucifer right after his fall from heaven. I found this really interesting as a lover of Lucifer, in some ways. A lover of Lucifer. I like the TV series, and I think his name is cool. But yeah. Continuing on, Madrid is also one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Despite it being heavily overcrowded during this season, people still flock to Madrid oftentimes, especially with it being the sunniest city in Europe. Basically, it's basically the opposite of London. It has the most sunny days of any other city in Europe, and it also has many museums and interesting places in general to visit. Madrid is also very well known for its sports clubs, and specifically football clubs, with Real Madrid being its most famous sport club, and Atletico Madrid, or should I say Atletico de Madrid, being its second most famous football club. But yeah, that is about it when it comes to Madrid. I hope that these pictures are like enough to spark your, not imagination, but spark a feeling of interest when it comes to these cities, because it's what I think talking is not enough to make somebody interested in something. Pictures are always something that makes stuff like 90% more interesting when it comes to both presentations and when it comes to recommending things and places and destinations and something like that. So yeah, Let's continue on with the next city, which is the second largest city, and it is Barcelona. Another very well-known city. It's, I think, the fifth largest metropolitan area in in Europe, and it is, as I said, the second largest city, and it's also the largest city on the Mediterranean. Most of you should know that the Mediterranean is the entire sea area that is underneath Europe and between Europe and Africa. But yeah, it is the largest of those cities. Though now that I think of it, there probably aren't, besides like Italy, I mean Italian cities, and maybe Greek cities there, and maybe Croatian cities. Well, yeah, but in general, a lot of cities just aren't situated. Big cities, at least, aren't situated near the Mediterranean, which is like the reason for Barcelona being the largest. Though Barcelona is gigantic in its own sort of way. But yeah, what I want to continue on is that there is really, really unique architecture in Barcelona. It's basically an architect's dream to go to Barcelona and see some of the unique works of, well, buildings and works of art, as they call them, because they are just so different. A lot of their artists are very well known, specifically architects are very well known, and I've done them in my studies of architecture and the history of art in general. So I know we've talked a lot about many of the different places in Barcelona that a lot of people flock to when they go to Barcelona. So I basically already seen them in a lot of ways. And beside that, there are also a bunch of museums and historical sites that you can see if you go to Barcelona. It's also important to note that Barcelona is home to more than 20 Michelin-starred restaurants, which is quite a high number considering that most countries don't have that many. And I don't just mean most, I mean like a lot of countries don't have anywhere near that many. It's also considered one of the most LGBTQ friendly cities in Europe, though the entirety of Spain is considered in a similar manner, but Barcelona is on the top of that list. And to continue on with what we said about Madrid, Barcelona is also very well known for its sports club, Barcelona, SC Barcelona, and Futsal Barcelona, FC. Yeah. But yeah, that's about it for Barcelona. Barcelona is actually also my sister's, not favorite city, but she loves Barcelona. And well, I'm more of a Madrid guy. But yeah, that is it's definitely a city that I want to visit one day. Continuing on, we have Valencia. Valencia is a lesser known city in Spain when compared to at least Barcelona and Madrid, which are like world-renowned places. But Valencia does still have its own charms. Specifically, as the third largest city, it is the presumed home of the Holy Grail. It's in one of its cathedrals, in a chapel in one of its cathedrals, or at least it is believed to be. But yeah, similarly to Barcelona, it is famous for its architecture and widely known as the land of flores, luz y amor, or better, or the English translation, flowers, light, and love. There's also a bunch of cats everywhere in Valencia, as far as I've researched, since Valencians really seem to love their cats. I forgot what the exact reason was for this, but I was fascinated by this, and I think my sister would love going here. But yeah, continuing on, Valencia also used to be the capital of Spain for like 11 months during the Spanish Civil War, so it wasn't a long time, but it was at one point. So that was a fascinating thing to me. And the most I won't say shocking but weird thing is that Valencia is, despite it being quite a unique city, its name is absolutely not unique. There are 58 other places in the world called Valencia, and 4 of them are in Spain. 58 of them in the world, 4 in Spain. I was flabbergasted when I heard this, honestly. But yeah, once again, a very, very interesting city. But yeah, continuing on, next up is Seville, or Sevilla. I'm never sure how to pronounce it correctly. But yeah, known as the Pearl of Andalusia. Andalusia is, or Andalusia, is a region in Spain. Spain is actually very much, how can I say this? Has many regions. It's the entirety of Spain is actually a bunch of different regions like Catalonia, Madrid, as I said, Andalusia, and others that I didn't remember. But they're somewhat autonomous. They don't, of course, they're not what's called independent, but they have their own autonomy in some of their inner workings. But yeah, that was also something interesting. And as I said, yeah, it's the Pearl of Andalusia, or Perla de Andalucía, and it's the fourth largest city, also known as the City of Oranges, or should I say the City of Orange Trees, since Seville oranges are world-renowned as awesome oranges. I've never tried one. I hope to try one, because I do like my oranges. And it's also a filmmaker's heaven, because a lot of films have been made and recorded in Seville. Specifically, one that some of you might know is the scene between Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala when they are at Padme's homeworld, was actually all recorded in Seville, which is interesting. But yeah, it's also home to some of Spain's best fiestas, which are also world-renowned. Another thing to mention is that it is home to the world's largest wooden structure. It's presumed to be the largest wooden structure because it was never actually certified that way, and it's called the Metropole Parasolis. And it should be showing right here, right about now. And the last thing that I wanted to mention about Seville is that the famous opera, The Barber of Seville, which actually wasn't written by a Spaniard, it was written by an Italian, but it also wasn't even written by an Italian because he based it off something that was written by a French guy. Yeah, so it's basically a comedy opera written by an Italian who was inspired by a French comedy novel about Spain. Enough said. But yeah, its original name was Le Barbe de Seville in French. Yeah, and the Italian opera, what are they called? Composer was called Gioacchino Rossini. I actually learned about him a bit in music class or whatever it's called. I forgot in high school, but I forgot all about it. I did remember The Barber of Seville, though it was literally stuck in my brain. But yeah, that's about it when it comes to the cities of Spain. Continuing on to something a bit different, which is the languages of Spain. Spain, I mean, as expected, Spanish is the most spoken language in Spain, but it is not the only language, and it's also important to note that Spanish itself isn't actually, well, there are Spanish languages, which are all Romance origin, and there are plenty of different, how can I say it, they're not really dialects, they're all separate languages, but only Spanish itself is recognized as an official language, while all the other ones are only official in these separate areas of Spain, in their autonomous regions. But in general, the most spoken language, of course, in Spain is Spanish, and after that it's Catalan, not sure, Catalonia, Catalan, I think it's Catalan, Galician and Basque, which all come in at about 17%, 7%, and 2% respectively. And as I said, there are a lot of different Spanish languages, but there are also other non-native languages spoken in Spain, which are specifically Moroccan or Arabic, Romanian, and English, which are spoken relatively often within these communities. But yeah, continuing on with the culture itself, Spain as a whole was at one point a what do I call it? A world dominator, as if I can say it that way. They had colonies all over the world, which is why the culture and the different styles and the things that are present in the Spanish culture are also present in many other countries and areas, because of the wide influence that they had, specifically in that period of time when they were the dominant force in the world. And their culture was especially but especially well known, and a lot of its art and its culinary, or should I say its cuisine, was adopted by different cultures globally. And it is one of the reasons why Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world. But yeah, that's always actually fascinated me, how many countries actually there's so many countries that speak Spanish, that it's just fascinating to me. And some of the most well-known artists and writers and sculptors and everything else all came from Spain. People like Pablo Picasso. Now I'll only be talking about the artists, the painters, because I know them the best, which are Picasso, Dali, and Goya. Some of their artworks should be shown here. But yeah, that is something that I always found interesting, because we often talked about Spain when we're talking about the history of art itself. Continuing on, I wanted to come to the most fun part, in my opinion, which isn't like the talk about Spain specifically, but like general facts about Spain. And these should all be quite interesting, because they're really random in a lot of situations. But yeah, nudity is completely legal in Spain, so go to Spain and go butt naked. I'm kidding, don't do that, because despite it being completely legal, it is still quite inappropriate in certain places, like I don't know what they're called, nudistic beaches are, of course, you're expected to probably be nude, but in general, despite it being legal, it's not commonplace as you might imagine from a place that has that nudity is legal in. Besides that, the Spanish people are quite leisurely. They're really chill. They oftentimes use a lot of their time, like 16 out of their 24-hour day, for either sleeping, leisure activities, relaxation, eating, and just generally chilling out. So they're living their life as best as they can, just enjoying life. Despite that, they are extremely loud. Probably the loudest people like in the world, as some experts have stated. There's of course, like, this is the Spaniards, and then there's me. I'm right here over them, being extremely loud, like even louder than them. That's me on that scale. Yeah. Next up is something that I personally really love about Spain, is that it's such a green country. Like even when compared to nations like the Netherlands and Belgium and Sweden, Spain is an extremely green and ecologically friendly place. All of the taxis in Madrid are ecologically friendly, and they had to be by law. They made it so. And in general, its view of renewable resources and greenery is really good, which is like one of the main reasons why I would recommend, and because I'd recommend anyone to go there, because supporting places that have this sort of good outlook on how the world should be, which is green, natural, with a lot of greenery, with a lot of renewable resources, not destroying the planet, should be, I don't want to say funded, but like, why should we not go to such a place if it's doing so much for the planet? It just encourages me to go there, not just because of that, but also because of everything else that comes with that, like the history, the artistic expression everywhere, be it architecture or art or museums or anything. There's so much stuff to watch, and like the greenery just amplifies that to a level where I'm like, oh, now I can also not feel bad for coming here. Like some places that might be using a lot of coal or something, or like generally countries that destroy the planet more than they help out. But yeah, so I definitely highly recommend visiting Spain, even if that is literally your only reason. But yeah, there is a really fun festival in Bunol, a town near Valencia. It's called La Tomatina, where people go around in a specific area, throw tomatoes at each other, and there are of course a lot of rules, but in general it's a really fun festival, and the pictures I've seen from it are like, I just want to go there and I want to throw tomatoes at people because it just seems extremely fun. But a lot of other cultures have also taken to this tradition because it is quite an interesting one. Continuing on, as I mentioned previously, Spain is a very pro-LGBTQ country. Around 80 people support queer pairings, and queer people to live their life freely like any other person, which is like awesome, especially when compared to some other countries which have really low, these numbers at a really low rate. Probably my country included, unfortunately. But yeah, that was something that I found really cool. And they also have a really large LGBTQ community in Spain itself. So they're not just supportive; they also have their own community. The highest mountain in Spain, which is called Mount Teide, it's located outside of the main peninsula. It is located on the Canary Islands. And as I said, it's called Mount Teide, and it's an active volcano. And because of the fact that it's an active volcano, the beaches around it, specifically around Tenerife or on Tenerife, all have black sand on them, which makes it a really interesting destination to go to. My uncle actually told me once about this, and I was like, "Whoa, that's really cool." But yeah. So yeah, they have black sand instead of yellow, whitish sand. Sometimes it's a mix. It's not completely black. It might be grayish, but it's still a really cool thing to think about. But yeah, continuing on, there is a town called Coria del Rio near Seville, where 700 people have the surname Japon or Japon because of a samurai that visited the town in the 17th century on a diplomatic mission, and all of these 700 people, or at least most of them, are his ancestors. Not his ancestors, his what are they called? His descendants. Which I was like, that is such a random thing, but it's so cool. Yeah. Continuing on, 44% of the world's olive oil is produced in Spain. And I'm gonna presume that the other half is in Greece and Italy, because those are some oily ass countries. But the good type of oil, not the bad oil. Continue on. Traditionally, Spanish people have two surnames, one from their mother and one from their father. And in my opinion, this actually makes a lot of sense. Like, why not have both? Why have to choose between one? Which is something that people often actually do in Serbia specifically. But yeah, that's a really interesting thing in my opinion. Madrid, besides being the capital, is also the literal center of the country itself, or at least the main peninsula, the main, what's it called? The mainland of Spain. Specifically, the Plaza Puerta del Sol is the center of Spain, which is, of course, in Madrid. It's not customary to tip in Spain, especially not when you're eating cheap food. In other cases, when you're eating something more expensive, it's also not expected to tip, but you can tip with something that is less expensive. It's absolutely not expected to tip. I see this mostly as if somebody is planning to go. So yeah. The last thing and the last fact that I want to talk about is that the bull is the Spanish national animal. As many of you know, the rodeo is quite famous, and the bull run also, but I didn't mention it here because I generally don't like talking about it, because oftentimes people talk about it like it's animal torture, and it pretty much is, so I don't like talking about it. But yeah, it's a thing. The bull is their national animal, and yeah, that's about it. That's about it for this video. Spain is in general a really interesting country, and I remember when I was learning it in geography class when in elementary school, I was always fascinated by it. One of my favorite tennis players in the world, who is called Rafael Nadal, is from Spain, and specifically from Mallorca, the island that I mentioned at the beginning. So I also always had that connection, and in general Spain has always been something really cool to me, and I honestly hope that I can go visit it at some point soon. That is about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that this sort of this type of video with like pictures and me speaking and talking about the stuff that is showing up and something like that is something you guys might enjoy, because I really like this like idea for videos, because it's like something really unique, something that I can show, something that I like doing, because researching countries, especially ones that I want to visit, is really fascinating to me. I hope to also make these countries interesting for you guys, so you guys might want to visit them. And I also want you guys to tell me which part of these types of videos you enjoy most, be it just the interesting facts, the cities, the monuments to visit, or something like that. Whatever it is, whatever you guys think would be interesting for me to talk about in these types of videos, let me know. I'll definitely not be talking about history or politics in these videos, just because that's not my groove. I don't like talking about that type of stuff, and I think it would be extremely boring, for me at least. So sorry about those, but if you have any other suggestions, something that you think I could have mentioned or something, or if you're from Spain and you think yourself that there's something that I missed, something that people might want to see, I'll put in the comments, and I will definitely heart your comment, and I might even pin it if it's really interesting. If you put a ton of facts, I'll definitely pin it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, leave a comment on what you thought and what you enjoyed, and subscribe for more of this type of content, and I will see you guys in my next video. Adios.